Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Wilson here with my good friend and co-host Adrian Wright, and this is the Supernatural and Beyond. Now that you have our perspective on the ancient question of are we alone, and the answer to that is no, we are not alone, we're going to start looking at where these other people are and how they come to us.
Yes. So dimensional portals would be one aspect of the things, and we have like Stargates projects and Stargates and interdimensional portals and all kinds of interesting stuff to talk about with this. So what I was going to say is maybe you've seen like the 1980s, there was a show called Stargate, and they were always fighting wars and dimensional beings would come through. And I'm sure you've seen some sci-fi movies, Tony, where there's portals open. And so one thing I like to bring about for our viewers and our listeners to kind of grasp their head open is like we have different dimensions that are mentioned like in the Bible.
Really?
You know, you have Sheol, you have like...
Sheol, okay, hold up. Just for my sake and the rest of us, Sheol, what is that?
Okay, so you have Sheol, you have hell, you have the grave, you have areas of like the underworld.
Okay.
So like in some theories, like Sheol is like a lower level. This is kind of like a rabbit trail. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to stick to the Stargate and the portals, but just to touch down and give our viewers like a brief understanding. There's different theories about Sheol. So some people believe Sheol's a dimensional place where soul goes when they die. Mm-hmm. Other people believe it's a physical place underneath the earth, mm-hmm. where like flesh goes when it dies. Instead of being buried in the ground, it goes to Sheol. It's like a holding cell, kind of like hell, where people go after they die. Okay. And then you have like the heavenly realms, you have the spiritual realms, you have the abyss. Abyss is another location. Some people believe it could be in a physical realm, like Sheol is physical or dimensional, and then hell is physical or dimensional. But I would say if it was like a physical place, you could actually go there. Like it would be an actual location, like the moon is a location, like Greenland is a location, or like Australia is a location, you know, where people can go, or you can see, you know, you can see the moon, you can see Australia, you can see New York, right? But we have interdimensional portals. So if you look at CERN is one of them, right? Like people talk about CERN and it's a hydro collider, and some people say they're trying to open another realm into another dimension. Even if you go as far back as the ancient Egyptians, not the ancient Hebrews, they built the pyramids of Gaza, and those pyramids are still here today. Right. And what scientists have learned about the pyramids of Gaza is they line up perfectly with the Orion belt, the stars in the sky. Right? The constellation of Orion, right? And then I don't know if you've heard of Stonehenge, which is in Europe, right? Yeah. So it has like the hinges, and a lot of people believe that has something to do with an actual portal that opens to another dimension. And the scientific thing that still boggles people's minds is like Stonehenge lines up perfectly with the Gaza pyramids, and it also lines up with other locations. Like there's these mounds in Colorado, like snake mounds that are built, and the thing is that they line up now. We can measure it with GPS and other technology, but back when these locations were built, the pyramids and Stonehenge and these mounds that were built by different people groups, they could not measure the earth at that time to line them all up.
Well, you know, in my studies and research, I have found those same stories and scenarios. Even in, like you said, you mentioned in North America, Native Americans have stories of how there are actual passageways in the earth that lead deep into the earth where there are other civilizations. Again, we talk about giants, we talked about the hollow earth theory. There are actual civilizations under the earth according to the Native American people. And so far as stargates and portals, there was not too long ago, I think it was this year, in New York, they brought what they call the gates of Baal or Baal.
Oh, yeah.
They brought it to New York, and it actually went on tour. They say that this is a portal, one of the portals that was and is being used to bring in extra-dimensional beings into the earth realm. Now, back to the Native Americans. The Native Americans say that there's certain places in New Mexico.
Okay.
There are certain places in various parts of the world where these spirit entities would come through. The pyramids in Mexico and Central America, which is based on the same type of architecture that's used in the Egyptian pyramids.
Right.
So they are related.
Right.
The same architects use a little different style and flair,
Right.
but they were using these as portals, as stargates. There are certain places on the earth where there's more frequency vibrations and things can actually go in and come out. We can go from this side to that side and from that side to this side.
Right.
So it's one of those things that requires a lot of study. There's a lot of scientific information out there in addition to cultural, there's so far as oral traditions from the various cultures. Again, I go back to the Sumerians, I go back to the Babylonians, I go back
Hebrews.
to the Hebrews, the Egyptians. All of these things, one of the famous Hebrew translations, one of the famous Hebrew stories is the story of Jacob's ladder.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's like, it's everywhere.
Right.
So there is extra-dimensional existence. And there are passageways or stargates or portals which different beings are accessing to either go to one side or the other.
Yeah, and I like that you bring up Jacob's ladder, because that was one when Jacob, whose name was later changed to Israel, he was able to see through that portal up into the heavenly realm.
Right.
And, he had a communication with God that said, I'm the God of your fathers, Elohim. And, I'm going to bless you and make you, the father of many nations, Israel. And so, the 12 tribes of Israel is 12 descendants and all that. And so what's interesting is that was a holy portal, right? So no demonic activity came through because it was straight into the heavenly realms. And he said he saw angels ascending and descending into the heavens. Mm-hmm. And so that's very good. But then you also have other portals, and it's like we don't know what's coming through those other portals, and those other portals could be open to a more demonic place where more demonic beings could come through, or even interdimensional beings that we don't know about could also be coming through. And one of the things that comes to mind, and that I'm coming to get this revelation from, is if you look at Jacob with his communication with the heavens, he was worshiping the creator God Elohim. He was worshiping him. Mm-hmm. He made an altar and sacrifice to Elohim, right? But then you start looking at these other portals CERN, for instance, right? And they talk about how there's been satanic worship and satanic ceremonies at CERN. So that could open up an evil dimensional portal. And then, you had the Mayans and the Incas that had those pyramids, and they used to sacrifice children to their fallen gods. So that could have opened up the portal because of that demonic activity. And then even with say, for instance, Area 51. Some people might believe that's a portal. In my research, I found out part of that portal. And then you learn that, hey, before it was called Area 51, there were some scientists that were involved in some evil stuff. And what they did was they had a satanic ceremony and believed to open a portal between the space-time for beings to come through that we now call aliens, the whole alien conspiracy with Area 51. So I find all that information really, really interesting, and to make that connection, like, hey, there's some kind of ceremony that goes on before these portals open.
Right. That's what in modern services at various churches. Pick your denomination. There's always, they come in, they sing some songs, and some actually have dance, and some actually have just free interpretation of how their particular spirits are working through them to bring them worship before the message that's brought forth.
Yeah.
And so that's another way of opening a portal or a stargate, by which the entities from one dimension can transfer into the other.
Back and forth, and it's either good or it's evil. It's either the red pill or the blue pill. It's either we're awake or we're asleep, or we're awakened or enlightened, or we are kept in the dark. So the supernatural and beyond, we want to always thank you guys for following us. Leave some comments down below about stargates, about portals, about other realms, some research you guys have run into. Be sure to like our video, give us that thumbs up, leave your comments, and subscribe for more content.